This worksheet is all about practicing your shading with a pen. Pens use jet black ink, so there's no gradient possible except through optical illusions. The first way to do that is to use hatching, which is using parallel lines, either short choppy lines or long bold lines like I've used in these examples for the most part. The important thing is to build up the density and to build up the number of lines in order to get the darker areas. They're all going the same direction. You try not to cross paths from one line to the next. Again, they're parallel, but you simply have more of them filling up the space. You also can bear down a little harder and make them thicker to fill up the space more evenly and more easily if you want to do hatching relatively quickly. Cross-hatching is the same technique generally, but you add directions to your hatching. So instead of just taking vertical lines, for instance, you would add horizontal or diagonal lines when you wanted to fill in some more density. You can see that most evidently, I think, on the way the square was rendered just now. This technique gives you a little bit more control over the gradient effect that you're getting. I think the optical illusion is a little more clear, and it looks a little bit more finished when it's finally rendered. The stippling technique is by far the longest and most frustrating technique to use. It just is a series of an innumerable amount of dots. Again, it's all about density. If you put lots of dots in a very small space, it's going to be a lot darker, and just a few dots over a wider area makes it lighter. The scary thing about stippling is we generally try to avoid putting any dots where we think the light is brightest, but that's going to work to your disadvantage. Even on that relatively light shading square of the cube, I put a number of dots because your eye will join those dots together and it'll give you the optical illusion of actually having a shadow over that face instead of having just a bunch of little dots. Especially as applied to a picture as a whole, when you kind of zoom out, you're going to get a very nice, smooth, even tone. Then when you get to scumbling, really the trick is just zigzag, squiggly lines, building up the density and the intricacy in the darker areas. Again, it's just the optical illusion where density equals shade. Any of these techniques is going to be useful to you. It's all about trying them out until you find out which one you like best. And that is how you work with ink and shading.